Now to enable cell writeback, we need to open the Cube Designer and go to the Partitions tab. Then we select a partition there and select Writeback Settings. Now we get an error here because the Finance Cube is using the by account aggregate function. If we were working with a measure group that's got a standard aggregate function, the sum function, we wouldn't see this message. But let's say that we're only interested in gathering data through Writeback for sales forecasts. So we can build in a workaround for our Finance Cube here. We'll just go into the data source view and we'll make another copy of the finance table by using a named query. And we'll call it sales forecast. And we'll just add in another copy of our fact finance table. And we'll select all the columns. And that's all there is to it. We'll create relationships to all of the same tables. So we'll go from the account key in the fact table to the dimension here. And we have the scenario key. And we just need to move things around here so that we can make the relationship. And there's all of our necessary relationships. Now we'll add a measure to the cube based on this sales forecast. We'll have amount, sales forecast. We'll just rename this. And set the format string. And now we'll go back to our partitions and we'll set the writeback settings for this partition, the sales forecast. And because we're using the sum function on that partition, we're able to set the writeback settings here. Notice the table name starts with write table underscore and then the partition name. And we can certainly change that if necessary. We can also change to a different data source if we don't want to store our writeback table in the same database as our data warehouse. We also have the option of changing our storage mode. So if we use MOLAP storage, then we're going to have both the ROLAP table, the relational table for the write table sales forecast, and Analysis Services is going to update this partition in MOLAP as well in the Analysis Services storage. If we choose ROLAP only, then the data is going to stay relational, and there's a potential for a little bit slower performance when we use ROLAP, but we also won't be doing incremental processing to update the Analysis Services storage. So there's some trade-offs both ways, but generally speaking, MOLAP is the preferred method for better performance. So we click OK. Now the table doesn't exist yet. It will not exist until we process the partition. So let's do that. And in order to process this partition, the account that is the Analysis Services service account should have create table permission on the source database, or whatever account that you are running the project under, which may not be the service account. But we need to do a full process here. And at this point, the table will be created. But of course it will be empty. So let's just take a quick peek. We'll refresh the database here. And we can see that there is now a table, but it's currently empty. Now I have a script here prepared where we can query this database, this cube, the finance cube, and just check for a particular time for the various quarters of 2006. We can see that we have budget values for Q1 and Q2, and there is no budget revision 1 value for any of those quarters. Normally we would have a client application perform the next step, but just to show you what this looks like as an MDX statement, we're going to update the cube, the finance cube, and then the accounts 101, this is the trade sales here, and we're also updating quarter 3, and we have the forecast amount measure, which is the measure that we just added, and then scenario member number 4, which is the budget revision 1. And we're going to set this value, this particular cell value, to 8 million. So when we execute this, we can actually go back and run the select statement again. And because this is the same connection running in the same session, I can see that 8 million now has appeared in the budget revision column. But if I were another user and I wanted to query this database, I could actually browse this cube. This creates another session, which is effectively like being another user. And if I were to browse this cube and look for calendar year 2006 and look at the account, which would be trade sales, I would not find anything, regardless of the scenario here. If I bring in amount, we'll see that there are budget amounts and actual amounts, but no forecast amount, no budget revision 1, because we have not committed this particular transaction. Now, if I wanted to throw this away, basically there is a rollback transaction that we could perform here. But if we want to save this and enable other users to see this value, we do need to execute a commit statement. So once we do that, execution's complete. Now I, as the other user, can refresh, and now we see that the 8 million appears for all other users. And that's how cell writeback works. Now, one last thing. Let's go look to see what happened in our writeback table. And we can see that there's many more rows of activity than just our single 8 million. And that's because that 8 million was allocated to individual days for that quarter. So that's how cell writeback works.